This episode brought to you by Nomadic Research, built for the wild and forged in adversity. Somewhere between the front lines and the firelight, a vision was born. The founders of Nomadic Research spent years in the harshest environments on Earth, where grit and resilience weren't just words, but a way of life. They saw a need for gear that could handle anything, gear that wasn't just built, but built to last. From battlefields to backcountry trails, every piece of Nomadic Research gear is designed with one mission: unyielding performance for those who refuse to quit. The founders believe in patriotism, personal responsibility, and the freedom of the great outdoors, because adventure isn't just a weekend escape, it's a way of life. Born in the heart of Afghanistan, forged in adversity, and built for the wild, Nomadic Research is gear for those who go further. You can start your adventure at nomadicresearch.com. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the DTD Podcast, Dynamic Tales Delivered. This week in the studio, we're joined by a 31-year Army vet, Delta Force legend, and 5-time Bronze Star recipient. He's led over 1,000 special op assaults and now trains the nation's top law enforcement and first responders. He's going to talk about leadership, resilience, all the odds that he beat to be here today. Please welcome into the studio, Chris Dutch-Moyer. What's going on, my friend?
I appreciate you so much having me on. Thanks for being interested in my story. And to be clear, I didn't lead 1,000. I took part in 1,000 for sure. And we figured it this way. You figure if you did 10 combat tours and you're out the door 100 times, well, guess what? That adds up quick, you know? I
think the number might be a lot higher than that.
It's funny because when you prep for a mission and go out on a mission, and then you go to that singular mission, and you're like, okay, that's one. And then, well, there's a follow-on, that's two. There's a follow-on, that's three. So there may be more than that. I've talked to some other friends of mine in the same position, and it's a lot. It's funny, you don't think about it, and I still don't really think about it. And the Bronze Stars are interesting too. I wish that maybe the Army had more deference to the way they award things, because a lot of these Bronze Stars for folks are service. That means if you were over there a certain amount of time, you got a Bronze Star. And so there was a couple of those. I have a couple of different awards that have V devices on them, and those are the ones that I would hope that, make a difference, a little different than just a service. But
yeah, and I hear a lot of people, especially guys like you, that talk about their awards and say that, it's weird, some of the ones that are popular to them or that they feel more about. And then of course you have guys that that's all they talk about is the awards that they got. So I appreciate when guys like you come on, and you're very humble in what you've done, because your career has spanned, we're talking 3 decades that it spanned, and you saw completely different armies from when you joined to when you got, into the majority of your career, and then at the end of your career. Can we kind of start at the beginning? I want to talk about your childhood, what brought you into this, playing Army, and dreaming about military service. I know that you read a lot of books about armor and World War II things, but you joined in 81. So I got to know if the movie Stripes was a big factor in you joining.
So that's an awesome question. And so I delayed entry program 81, first months in the Army were 82. The guy in the movie Stripes who gave Bill Murray his underwear at that logistical place right there, I don't know what they call them, the CI, it was a central facility, central
issuing facility, CIF. Yeah. Sure. That's all right. All right.
Got you loud and clear, 5x5. Sorry about that. I put it on D&D. It's not going to happen anymore.
Okay.
Hey, the boss.
Listen, we said you were busy, so it's not a big deal. All right. So we'll just start from the beginning. So let's start about the beginning. We'll talk about your childhood. I know that you read a lot of books, watched a lot of war shows. I think you have mentioned in the past watching Combat, which is still on TV if you didn't know. Yeah, it's still on TV. But you joined 81, and I got to know if stripes was a main reason that you joined the military.
So I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, is where they had Stripes filmed, and it's a great question because the guy who gives Bill Murray his underwear at that central initiation facility or whatever I stands for, I can't remember. The same guy that gave him the underwear gave me mine. So same guy, so same time frame. And then even deeper into that, so him and Harold Ramis, I think they're hiding from somebody late at night. They're in the motor pool. Delta 32 is the stamp number on one of these tanks, and I actually had to sign for that tank once upon a time. So that was pretty cool. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Delta 32?
Wow,
yeah, that's mine. Used to be mine.
Do you think that there was a defining moment that made you say, like, this is what I want to do?
I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, born in California, but moved to Western Pennsylvania, which my father was very happy about because I was born in LA County. And we know what that looks like now, and it's probably not the great place for kids to grow up. But ever since I was a kid, like you mentioned, whether it was combat or Where Eagles Dare or whatever show I was watching, I always wanted to be a soldier. Always I can't remember wanting to be anything else. And so it was always a soldier for me. A law enforcement officer was after I got out of the Army the first time before I came back in. I had thought about, let's be a law enforcement officer, perhaps. So it was either one or the other. It was either soldier or law enforcement officer.
Do you think, though, that any of that came from your family? Like the history of it, do you think it came from your family?
Yeah, my family, my uncle had a retirement Air Force background, but nothing like a combat background, nothing like I wanted. I wanted to engage the enemy with a tank. I wanted to do these things with a tank. And then later on, I really figured tanks, it's not where it's at. You should be an infantryman and jump out of airplanes. And so I did that too.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you. Was there something specific about the tank or the armor? Was it the stories of Patton, or was it the stories from World War II?
I built tanks, 135th scale tanks when I was a young kid. And I'd look through books, and I was fascinated with aircraft. And I was fascinated with tanks and machinery. I remember seeing a Ju-87 Stuka plate on one of these books I had, and I had a snake set. They had painted a snake on from the cowl all the way down to the rear struts on the elevators. And I told my dad, dude, this is a beautiful airplane. And he's like, it's a war machine. Can't think of it as beautiful. He tried to dissuade me a little bit, but that's how I viewed machinery. And then the tanks, what's it called? I don't know, armored warfare is it's the blitzkrieg. I watched the Germans and I watched the videos and I watched how that they were utilized. And of course, combined arms was utilized later by the Allies. And so, so tanks, I always wanted to be a tanker, man. I always wanted to be a tanker or a tank commander. And finished my first part of the Army just as that, as a tank commander.
I've heard you say that in the 80s that the Army was an all-volunteer Army, which made it a strong Army, but you didn't necessarily believe in the leadership of the 80s. You thought that the leadership was kind of lacking there. Can we talk about your insight on that? Because like we talked about in the beginning, 3 decades in the military, you see a lot of different kinds of leadership. I don't know that it changes at its base level, but you do see a lot of different kinds of leadership. What was it about that 80s leadership? Maybe this isn't the right place right now.
May have been because of the unit. We all know that leadership trickles down. Oftentimes you can have bright spots in between, but so many times what happens to mid-level leaders or even junior leaders happens because what happens above them. The 80s in Germany is where I was, and the unit was the 8th Infantry Division Mechanized, and it was not disciplined. It wasn't. My leadership wasn't disciplined. Therefore, I wasn't. A lot of times you go to the motor pool, if you weren't really training with the tank outside somewhere running it, what was it doing? Well, maintenance, 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 maintenance. I mean, it's a huge maintenance problem, right? Constantly, the tracks, the motor, the whatever. And so, if you had nothing to do really, or you're waiting for something, the young men would go into the tank and kind of just go to sleep. I saw that a lot. Drugs was rampant. Drugs were rampant in the 80s. Um, I just saw a lack of discipline and a lack of leadership. There's just a whole lot of, we don't care so much. It's not that big of a deal. We're not really going anywhere. We're not really doing anything, which is amazing to me because as you look back, one of the main missions that we had was to fill the folded gap. And if you guys don't know what the folded gap is out there, I don't blame you because these are old terms in the 80s when Germany was split in half, and the Warsaw Pact was real. And the gap around Fulda, Germany, was this gap where armor could be utilized, and there it would be much better. So they figured that this would be a place to go. So my particular unit was the stop gap, that possible armor entry into the West. So there was a real mission, to me. But I think it's the age of MTV and the age of nuclear war, and nobody wanted to press the buttons. It was Ronald Reagan and Brezhnev, and long story short, nothing ever happened, obviously, and that kind of faded. But leadership, that was my first really look into. I can't act this way. I don't want to act this way. I don't want to be around people like this. And so I got out of the Army. That was my first time in.
To take it even deeper, in Germany at that time in the 80s, you talk about Special Forces Berlin, where there was a unit there that was doing real world Cold War missions. And, I've talked to a guy that was in that unit, and he talks about no one knows how close we were to war every single day, especially in Europe. So it's crazy to hear from you being in big Army at that time that the drugs are so rampant that everyone is kind of blowing it off and, not taking it seriously.
I think a little seriousness came with the Baader-Meinhof gang and different terrorist organizations like the Red Brigade came up. And then we finally went to the front gate with the tank, and you had a firing pin with you for the big main gun. And you're like, they're serious about this. But, also could be my youth, 19, 20, 21 years old. I was just kind of, all right, what do we have in store here? But one of the things that happened in my unit that I disliked a lot, looking back, was we had to wait for the word. So you finished your tasks, and it was, you weren't deployed anywhere. You weren't doing any kind of school training somewhere in Grafenwehr or Hohenfels or something like that. You were in station in Mannheim, and you had to wait for the word. So everybody knew 1700 there'd be a evening formation, and so you did that. So you had a morning formation for accountability. You had a PT formation. Then you had a lunch, probably a come back from lunch formation. Then you had a 1700 formation for what's the word for tomorrow. And we would wait. I don't know what the command was doing. I don't know what they were doing. What's the platoon sergeants doing? What are they doing downstairs with the first sergeant? I don't know what they're doing, but we'd wait for hours. There'd be 2 hours gone by. Or go to chow and come back. We'd go to chow, we'd come back. Still waiting. Then finally somebody would come out, who knows who it was. I don't even remember at the time. Could have been the XO, whatever, and say, hey, tomorrow morning, 06 PT. And everybody knew that already. So it didn't make me happy, man. It just was really tiresome. Everybody knew, give the men some leeway. And so I eventually ended up, joining a unit, of course, that big boys rules are exactly what they are. So,
Do you think that part of your disillusionment was because you're such a scholar of the history of the military and the campaigns and what they've done in the past, that led to a lot of your disillusionment?
I mean, I appreciate the words there, but I don't think I'd go that far. I think that I've really started ramping up my knowledge of leadership, later after that. And that, like that, for instance, a specific example came up later when I was a Ranger squad leader talking to Ranger platoon sergeants and stuff. And I did know more about World War II than they did. Yes, 100%. It just wasn't, they didn't have to study that. You don't have to study that in the end, but I did. and then you can learn a lot from those combat vignettes and what happened to troops before you, a whole lot. So yeah, it's, I don't know if I answered that all the way as well as you wanted it, but
No, and that's exactly when you bring up the Rangers. That's exactly what I'm talking about. When you were counting the tiles, new to the Ranger Regiment, and you knew more about the history than anyone else. I believe that if you have high expectations, you can get them shot down very quickly, no matter what kind of unit you're in. And so that's why I think that first armor, it wasn't there. That feeling of combat, that feeling of realness in the world is what kind of disillusioned you. But you get out, you take a break, you're living in your parents' basement, you're trying out some stuff, you attach to the National Guard. When you do that, it's a special forces unit. So do you start to get some of that razzle dazzle back a little bit?
I was a National Guardsman for a little bit in Pennsylvania from the 28th Infantry Division, which was the Bloody Bucket. They got their name, the Bloody Bucket, from the Hurricane Forest when they got decimated. I'm more than decimated. Decimated is 10%, so more than that casualty rate. They got crushed. So being in that National Guard as an armor crewman, I was still an armor crewman, I was tank commander. Did I make platoon sergeant there? No, I was the E6. But wanted to leave there because they really don't know what they're doing either. And then you were the only guy who's ever been to tank table 8, tank table 7. The experience that you carried as a regular Army soldier, whether it was armor or whatever, and you got to this National Guard unit where nobody had done what you'd done already, and you didn't think you did a whole lot. And so I was like, wow, okay, roger that. And so when I started, like you said, I tried some stuff out. UPS, I was a bartender. What else did I do? I worked for a guy who laid carpets and laid floors for a little bit, but I wanted to get back in the Army, and that's where that I transferred that National Guard from Ligonier, Pennsylvania, to Camp Dawson, West Virginia, part of the 19th Special Forces Group, and yeah, there were professionals there for sure. Met a Sante Raider there, and so there, but there was also guys there. The personnel guy in particular, who lost a lot of my records and stuff. I don't know if it was his fault, whatever, stuff didn't show, just lost it. Well, I'm gonna, he doesn't know me anymore. I don't know him anymore. I don't remember his name. So I did get a chance to go to pre-SFAS. We went to Fort Ord, California and did that. So I really got to see how hard I needed to be. And that was cool, very cool. I learned that I was not a good swimmer. I learned that I could rucksack with the best of them. So it was, it totally changed everything. When I went to Fort Ord for that pre-SFAS, changed everything. And I saw that this is really what I want to do. I really want to get into this kind of lifestyle.
So you re-enlist back into the military. You do 11 Bravo infantryman, and you go to the 75th Ranger Regiment. I think you go to jump school and all of that before you go over there, correct? Okay. What's interesting about it, though, is you've been doing the National Guard thing, but as you come in and you go to these schools, you start being honor grad of RIP and all of those kind of things. Is there a point in you where you're like, holy shit, this is what I should have been doing the whole time?
Yes.
Like, I wasted so much time doing that other shit.
Yeah, honor grad, and well, we did basic training. We finished our advanced individual training to switch over to 11 series. That was easy. There's funny stories back behind the scenes, but to cut it shorter, funneled through some of that, joined with a bunch of other guys who were transferring their MOSs as well, their military occupational specialty. And then they were also transferring over to 11 series. And then, so we all did it together, and it really made for a kind of fun time. Finished that, went straight to airborne school, and yeah, became the enlisted honor grad for airborne school. I'm not exactly sure how or why, to be honest. But somebody thought I was motivated, and then you had to take a couple tests. I did well in whatever. I don't know what they saw, to be honest with you. But yeah, I earned that. That was cool. And went straight to RIP, which is Ranger Indoctrination Program. They don't have that anymore. They have Ranger Assessment and Selection Program. And I was the honor grad from my class there too. And I'm like, okay, this is working out pretty well. But then I immediately got the first to the 75th and got my dick kicked in quickly, and I was a little cockier than I should have been for sure. Um, and like you mentioned before, I'm getting smoked. When you first get to a regiment, to the battalion, you're going to get skinned up. Someone's going to take you somewhere and put a little smoke on you, make sure you respect the school, respect the place where you are, who you're talking to, and they're just feeling you out to see if you want to quit or not. And that's when we were doing Ranger history questions. And yeah, I'm on my back doing flutter kicks, counting the tiles, or we're doing star bursts. Yeah, star bursts is what they call it. We're doing all kind of silly things in the hallway. And yeah, I'm answering them pretty quick. I'm answering them all correctly. And and this one E5, I didn't know it was E5 at the time. He was in PT uniform. He just comes over and says, "Get over in this room. Get in this room." So I go in the room, huffing and puffing, and he says, why are you answering all these questions correctly? And I'm like, I felt like the Forrest Gump moment, well, because not you personally, but you told me to, I kind of felt like I went to RIP and I learned these things and I dig Ranger history, and that's why. And that's when they found out that I was a soldier in the past. They found a picture of me in my dress blue uniform that I bought for a wedding, and they put it out on the board there so they could make fun of me. I was E4 with E4 in that picture. I might have been E6 actually in that picture. I think it was. But I lost my rank when I came back in, so now it's back to E4.
Well, let's not gloss over that so quickly. You not only lost your rank, you had to go back to basic training
due to whatever. Life was all about comical errors. Anyway, they couldn't find my basic rifle marksmanship, so I had to go back through a basic training portion just to get my basic rifle and advanced rifle marksmanship. And so I had to be billeted with brand new kids, 17, 18 years old. And here I am, what was I, 27? 28, 26. And they called me the specialist. Instead of specialist, they called me the specialist. Because I knew a whole lot. I just knew a whole lot more than they did because they were just young, dumb kids. Fortunate to be in the advanced PT group all the time. Fortunate to me and another guy were in the same boat, and we found a way to get to the gym when they would go somewhere else. We'd go to the gym. We were both prepping for something different. He was going through the SF pipeline, and I was going to RIP. So I had a lot of fun. But that was a fun time. It was a really fun time, actually. Looking back at it, it was comical. They had one drill sergeant who was really in favor of the whole trade doc letter that said you were a soldier, and he treated me very well with respect. And there was another drill sergeant who was a total dick, and he didn't care about you or anybody else. So that always makes for a good time.
It's that classic mom and dad syndrome where you got two different parents that are in charge of you. I got to talk about the Ranger Regiment because we've had guys on here that were in the regiment, a lot of guys that have been in the regiment. And they talk about, when you mention the 80s in Germany and there was a lot of drugs and partying and all that kind of stuff, what I've heard from guys that go to the regiment is it's a hard lifestyle too. Not only are you training hard and being the very best, but you're also the very best at partying and drinking and all of that kind of stuff. It's a hard life day and night in the Ranger Regiment. But I want to kind of get your idea on what's different about that lifestyle and the lifestyle in Germany.
So I went to Fort Benning. I spent my time, right after Airborne, waiting for a RIP. I spent my time with my soon-to-be wife. So I wasn't going out and partying. I was with my wife. So I knew NCOs that would drink a case of beer and then they would outrun you on anything you ever wanted to do in the morning. It didn't bother them. And they were some indestructible young men for sure. It was really the best time of my life to be a Ranger. One of the best times of my life. It's a great place to grow up, that's for sure, as far as a soldier goes. The differences between the two, though, really, this for me personally is my age. I was much more mature when I was in 175 in Savannah. And I, again, had a fiance, soon to be wife. And in Germany, I had nothing. I didn't sip alcohol until I was 21. A lot of these kids in Germany took advantage of whatever, what you want to drink age wise. Oh, and besides, back in 1982 and 83, when I was at Fort Hood, Texas, you could drink on post if you're a soldier. So you, and then, oh yeah, gee whiz, in Texas at that time frame, the drinking age was 19 anyway. So you could go to clubs at 19 and drink. Um, so drinking wasn't something that was abnormal, that's for sure. But in Germany, the bubblegum black hashish, that was a big thing. And I remember a dude had a whole duffel bag full of dope. Um, and I'm like, what do you do with all that? I'll tell you, I'll tell you what, DJ, I had a platoon sergeant, which I liked him, but he was a subpar performer. If he ever listens to this, maybe he is, maybe he's not. I'm not going to throw his name out, but he would come up. He would store a jar in my little refrigerator when I was in Germany in my barracks room. And at lunchtime, he'd come up and open that jar up. It was moonshine. He drank moonshine. I don't know how many times he came up there and did it. I don't remember, but I know he did it. Hey, I'm going to your room. Roger that. Well, you only go up there for one reason, man, because he's got moonshine in my refrigerator. Something that was unheard of as a ranger, right? If some guy was drinking alcohol in the morning in his coffee or drinking alcohol for lunch, then he's got a problem. And then I don't remember ever being told that was a problem, or and it probably was a problem, I would assume, but nobody ever really cared, mentioned it, and maybe they did. I just didn't see it, but it's not the way I remember it. And then the discipline for the Rangers much higher, but I told somebody the other day, a good friend of mine, we had this slight argument about would it be SF or would it be Rangers that have less maturity? And I was saying right away, it's the Rangers to me, because you can have a 17 or 18-year-old private, you can have a private first class, and also 18, 19. A sergeant could be 21 years old, 20 or 21 years old. If he's got 3 years in a regiment, he could get his Rangers tab and be a sergeant at the age of 20 or 21. So that's pretty immature to me. 21 through 17 is the bulk of your power, right? Each squad has 8 men. That's 8 men right there. Could be 21 through 17 in each team. There's no maturity there. The squad leader's a little bit older. The platoon sergeant's where your maturity really is. But the togetherness of everybody, the tribal aspects, was really tight, really strong. Great place to grow up, like I said. Hard training, and yeah, there was some partying, sure. But I heard other stories though in other companies though too. Guys would they do naked buffer Monday or something, and you would have to buff naked, or somebody would have to sit on the buffer while another guy pushed it around on the floor, because the floors had to be shiny. I remember stories of somebody had done a small arms range in the hallway. They put books and barriers down there so they could shoot pistols in the hallway. There was always a bizarre story like that, and I'm sure there's still stories like that today. Because obviously people are inherently not so good, and you let them do stuff over a long weekend or something, and add alcohol, some stuff can happen.
So when you have this argument, when you're talking about special forces for the Rangers, if you think about it, even your new lieutenants that are coming in, they're not that mature. They're 21, 22 years old.
Now you got to be a first lieutenant. So yeah, back in the day, it was a second lieutenant, and you're right. You have a platoon sergeant who's been in the Army for 12 or 13 years, and then you have this other guy who's been in there for just like you say, just gets off of West Point assignment, right? And he's brand new, so that's pretty interesting.
Not to mention the guys that come from West Point during the summers that are in the cadet program that are working there. I know when I was in the 25th, we had cadets every summer come to our field artillery unit, and they worked as quote unquote officers, cadets, all summer long.
I wouldn't doubt it if somebody showed up, probably, but I don't remember.
Do you think that was And this is going to be a hard to answer question, but do you think that that was your best time in the military?
Best time was in the unit for sure. Graduating from there to a place where excellence is expected day in, day out, where you get to a place where, 98, 99% of the people in the building really want to be there and make a difference, no matter if they're a cook or an operator or an HR person, right? Human resource, I often use the example of, we had, during my tenure, again, we had a great paralegal, and she was amazing. And she always wanted to be there. Every time you saw her, hey, what's up? She was just, people walk down the hallway and you just know they want to be there. Just people just want to make a difference and be there. And it was the best time of my life. Yeah, for sure.
I got to ask about one more thing in the regiment. Something that we didn't talk about, but I think it made a big impact on you. When you went to the regiment, you were an E4, but you had already been an E6 in the National Guard, and you'd made honor graduate of these classes that you're coming from. But you need to start turning rank quickly to become an E5. But in the regiment, you need to be tabbed to be a sergeant. Can we talk about them making you a sergeant, not being tabbed yet?
So in the Ranger Regiment, you're not going to be a leader, and leaders are E5, E6, E7. You're not going to be able to be a homesteader. You're not going to be able to stay and lead in the regiment until you pass the premier Army Leadership School, which is Ranger School. You're just not going to be able to. It's just illegal. It's almost like no one ever does it. Well, as an E4, I went to school. I went to Ranger School, but before I went to pre-Ranger or wherever it was, I might have been Ranger School. I can't remember exactly. But I had a heat casualty. We did a 5-mile run or so. I had a heat stroke at 107-degree core temperature, which I guess some medical professionals will tell you that's pretty bad. So I had to bump out of that class. Meanwhile, they couldn't stop me from being promoted because of my time. And I didn't want to be promoted. And I'm telling you, brother, I'm like, no, don't do it. Do not promote me. I was groomed by my platoon sergeant. He said, look, you're going to have to go. You're going to have to get promoted. But you have to pass this next one you go to. You have to. It's imperative. So I got boarded by the leaders in 175. I got my E5. To which, by the way, when you get promoted or something happens good to you, you go in front of the formation and everybody shakes your hand or fist bumps your rank into your chest or whatever it might be. At the time when we had pins, so you smash your rank into your chest over and over again, so people get all bloodied up. And so nobody really wanted to shake my hand at all. Nobody. Guys would line up. They made people line up, and they didn't want to touch me. It was, and I don't blame them. It was a kind of a bad deal. But I went to the next class and went through did my pre, all good to go. Went through school. I'm going to school, and I'm up in the mountains. I'm in Dahlonega, the mountain phase, and I was a winter ranger, so it was cold. It was during Christmas and New Year's. Cold as all get out, man. It snowed in Florida. It snowed in Dahlonega. It was cold. And back in the day too, right? You had rank that you would sew on your uniform, and private's no rank at all, but E2 is one wing, right? E3 is the wing plus the rocker. E4 is a specialist, and then E5 is a little bit bigger, is just 3 stripes. Well, the squares on my uniform, they fade, right? So the patch fades, and then you take that, because no one wears rank in Ranger School, so you got to take them all off. And there's a faded square there, and it's clear, no matter what anybody says or what it used to be, it's clear that shadow that was left by my rank could clearly denote that you were a NCO, and you were not a specialist. And so I'm up in the mountains, and this ranger instructor is looking at me, and he's looking at my uniform. So here it comes, right? Here he goes. He said, so what are you, a commo guy? Because again, you could be that. You could be a commo guy. You could be a medic. You could be a soft skill occupational specialty without being tabbed. But you couldn't be an infantryman without being tabbed. That was insane. And he's like, "Yeah, you're a combo guy? No. Are you a medic? No, sir." And he pauses and pauses, and he looks at me and goes, "You're the one." And that was the one you don't want to be, right? I'm like, "Gah, no, I don't want that. I don't want that." And I said, "Roger, I'm that guy." Um, and so now there's an expectation, though, right? Now there's absolutely an expectation where you are going to be. I just put a target on my back. I just threw it on me. Here it is. There's a little faded square. It's my target. And so I had to step up, and that my Ranger school went pretty well for me. I'm not honor grad by thank God, but it went pretty well. So that's the Ranger school patch story, man.
Well, I guess he could see your scroll too on your sleeve, because it had to be faded right there too, where you wore your unit patch.
So right away when he sees the scroll that doesn't have enough room for the Ranger tab, it goes on top. So now he sees the square, and I gotta be a combo guy, or I gotta be a medic, or I gotta be some sort of logistician. What are you, a supply guy? He didn't say that, but all he had to say was two things. You combo? No. Are you medic? No. Oh, we know who you are now. You're the piece of shit, right? That's how you start sweating out a little bit.
You say, "No, I'm not personnel, but I know this piece of shit that lost all my records a long time ago made me repeat all this stuff." So we've talked about you not being a great swimmer. Was there some kind of swim test that you failed? Yes. I here's what's interesting to me about you. Is you hear about these points in your career that are failures, right? You fail a certain test, you fail an assessment, whatever. And then you almost turn it into your life's mission at that moment to do exactly what you just failed at.
First Ranger school, first pre-Ranger thing I went to before I got the heat injury, I failed the swim test. Again, this one was the year before. It was super cold. The Ranger School PT test, or the Ranger School swim test, as far as I remember, well, as far as I know now, I'm just the same or not. It could be different by now. Tell somebody to chime in, but you had to do a 15-meter swim, BDU's boots with a rifle, and you had load bearing equipment on your body. You had to jump off a plank, right? You had to jump in the water and then take off all your kit to save yourself, that kind of stuff. So I think you had to do that. Yeah, I really do think you had to do that. But the 15-meter one was, for me, was the hardest, and I wasn't good at it. I wasn't good at swimming. I didn't make it a thing. So I failed that. I failed right away. I had to come home. And when I got home, I had the new wife, and I lived in an apartment that had a little pool as a communal pool. And I would get up super early in the morning, and I had a rubber duck. I would get a rubber duck, and I would put boots on. I didn't put a uniform on, but boots and the rubber duck and my shorts, and then I would do 20 meters, 50 meters. I would just swim and swim and swim until I got it right. And so I could do it. And then next thing you know, the next time I went, it was, like I said, it was super cold, but I made it. And jumping in really cold water takes the breath right out of you, man. And if you're not ready for it. But yeah, it was, there was another time I was a poor swimmer. The swim test for my later years. Before all this too, as a National Guard member, I went to this pre-SFAS course in Fort Ord, California. And one of the prerequisites for SF is to swim 100 meters with your BDUs and boots on, no equipment and stuff like that. It was just a survival swim. It's like 4 laps in the pool, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 100 meters. And I failed that quickly. And one of the instructors told me a story going back. He said, you've heard the statement, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I said, yeah, Roger, that's wrong. And he said, look, when I went to SFAS, he said, I was a poor swimmer. And so we all had to take a shower before you go. And we did the same thing at Fort Ord. We all had to walk through the shower, get all wet, get in line, then go. He said, well, I walked through the shower, I mingled around a little bit, and then I went straight to the score guy. And I said, this is my name, and I scored, I'm good. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, spent 20 years in SF. I'm like, all right. So I'm like, well, I kind of feel better at the same time. I don't know if I can get away with it. It's not all it's cracked up to be, I guess, maybe, but whatever. It's a prerequisite. And so later on, if you want to get to that later, I failed that swim test too, and I made it my life. There's no way I was leaving here without being able to complete the thing. So I did.
When you talk about that, about not swimming and stuff, and if you're not cheating, you're not trying. When I went to dive school, I'll never forget the first day we were doing the swim test, like the PT test to get in. And there was a Marine that was there, and we line up on the pool to jump in. And right as they're about to call it, this guy kind of looks at him, and everyone jumps in to swim, and he doesn't. They're like, "What are you doing? Jump in." And he said, "Oh, I don't know how to swim." And they said, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, I don't know how to swim at all." And they said, "What did you think you were going to be doing here?" And he said, "Well, we had air and stuff. I thought I'd be good." So there had to be some kind of pencil whipping on his end to get him there in the first place, because you had to pass the pre-test to get in and everything. So I've seen stuff like that in the military, and it's hilarious to me how people show up to stuff, and they paid a ton of money to send this guy there, and they had to fly him back and everything. So do you think that, that's a small thing, the swim test, but it kind of bites you in the ass a couple different times. Do you think at any point that you took it as serious as you should? And I know that sounds weird to say as serious as you should, because it's just a test to get in and stuff. But did you ever look at that and go, that's one area that I'm failing in? I need to become the strongest that I can.
Just don't want to be that guy. And that stuck with me for a long time. I'm a much better swimmer now than I ever have been. I don't choose to go, swimming laps in the pool. I just don't. I'd rather put a rucksack on my back, but I probably ought to swim. It's probably better for you at the tender age now. My tender age now.
You go over to the unit 2 years removed from 9/11. You go over there. There are there's some giants over there at that time in the unit. Some people that have, written books and everything like that.
Yeah, I get there. I didn't know anybody there. So
of course, yeah. At that time, there really was. Chuck Norris was about the most people knew about the Delta Force. I mean, seriously, there was nothing really back then. So you had Operation Eagle Claw and a couple of other things that had happened that were big, but there wasn't a lot known. When you get to somewhere like that, coming from the Ranger Regiment, which was, we can say, was a test for your job every day there too. But you come here and it's on a whole different level. Do you remember stepping in there on the first day to this storied unit that no one knows about, storied but yet unknown?
When I first got there, classroom and people are briefing you, you're going through a bunch of stuff, and it's super fantastic to be there. Number one. It's fantastic to go through the whole process. You're honored to be chosen just for the paperwork alone. You should be grateful, and not grateful, but you should be grateful. But you've already made it past a whole lot of folks. The packets come in, packets go. Okay, you guys, whoever you are, right? This many people, those packets went through. So you're already head and shoulders above all these other people. And then when you get through the PT test, and then when you get through the selection process, and then you're higher than, you passed another gate, right? So then you should be happy where you are with that. So it's an honor to do that. And then going there, it is what you said about giants. I didn't know a whole lot about it, to be honest with you, which might seem funny, but I remember being asked that question as part of part of the whole process, and I'm like, I really don't know much about it. But you watch a video, you say, "Oh, I'd love to do that though." So let me try that. Wow, walking in the building, yes, 100%. But you're sheltered a little bit when you're in training, so that's a whole another story. Going through the gate, the whole process, it is. And then you might see somebody who came before you, and you're like, "How you doing?" Kind of give them the head nod, "How you doing?" Because you're not getting talked to. But the whole place again, it's a place where 98, 99% of the people want to be there and they want to achieve excellence every day. Uh, the love of my life and I just watched on Netflix the thing about the Thunderbirds and this guy Astro's the flight leader or whatever, and he talks about that excellence all the time. I mean, it's a real inspiring. It's exactly how I'm like that's. And now the love of my life, works at Augusta National Golf Course. And she does not like when I talk her up, but she's achieved to work at this place, and this place is like it's like JSOC, right? It's got a wall around it. You can't hardly see in it. You're not allowed to have a phone in there, and it's all based on excellence. These people that want to be there. It's excellence personified in everything they do there, and I'm so proud of her because of that. And it's the same kind of thing with when you reach these levels. There's everybody wants to be there, like Rhonda, the paralegal. She wanted to help you. She wanted to help you do better, to have your records in order, to make sure you were ready. Um, it is by far the best place I've ever worked. It's the place I miss the most. And the experiences that I've been places across the planet only because I got a chance to work there, only because I made it. The things I've seen, been with, people you've been with, you commonly known as, you want to be in the worst possible places with the best possible people. That's that place right there. The secrecy behind it is fantastic. I'm constantly amazed by it, and when people talk about it, and I'm like, stop talking about it. I think, to be as vague as possible, it's just a fantastic place where people who want to work and be there and make a difference. But what's the theme? What's from Fury? Best job I ever had, right? Best job I ever had, hands down. Best job I ever had.
Yeah. Let me ask you, for later on in life, though, having that as the best job and then having to leave it at some point, because in that kind of job, you do have to leave it. Now, there were extenuating circumstances with you, but do you think that having that best job at that point in your life kind of spoils it on the backside, because you'll never reach that level again?
I think you could reach another level, right, in a different organization. I think you're right, though. Predominantly, you won't. I get a chance to go back on occasion. I was just invited back for Memorial Day type of celebration, which I could not go, but it's important to me to be invited back. It's important to me to be in good standing. But leaving it, gosh, the train runs 100 miles an hour no matter what anybody says. It's well beyond 100 miles an hour. And it is an interesting thing. Once you get off, it keeps going. You are a small entity in this giant machine, right? And I guess it's a metaphor for real life anyway. Do good things, tell the truth, and be a good steward of where you are on the planet. Treat people correctly. Maybe make a difference in some things, but in the end, you're going to go, right. You're a blip. The whole thing continues, and it's going to continue without you. So make an impact somewhere, and then hang along.
I want to talk about how that lifestyle affects marriage, being a father, because it affects it in a lot of different ways. You can hear crazy stories where guys have a great marriage and have been married forever and done that job and figured out a way. And then you hear these train wreck stories about their kids don't talk to them anymore. There's, nothing really left in that personal life. But I wonder, and I ask this question to everyone that raises their hand like you and says it's a train wreck. At what point do you cut the tie and say it's worth it? It's worth the train wreck to live this life and just keep doing it? Because you'll hear so many guys say, I just wanted to keep going back over. Life was simple over there. I didn't have to worry about making a wife happy, taking the kids to baseball, paying bills, anything like that. It was a simple, simple life. I had a mission, I did it, and I came home, and that was it. At what point do you in your life look at it and go, yeah, it's worth the train wreck to me?
That's hard, bro. That's hard. It's the snake. Is it the scorpion and what animal was at the edge of the stream and the scorpion wants to ride and alligator. But the scorpion nails him in the end, right? And he says, "You knew I was a scorpion when you picked me up." I had told that to the first one and the second one too. I said, "This is my life. I'm going to do this until I retire, and that's what I'm going to do." The first one didn't make 6 years as a ranger wife, and the second one lasted. To her credit, she lasted 20 years. But I was the jerk. I was the bad apple here, not her. And then, we recently divorced, but I was living by myself. I was living in a separate room in the house. I mean, I went through the whole gamut. It was not healthy. It's not good. It wasn't good for my kid. Wasn't good for her. And so we finally made the jump to Lightspeed. And in between there, sometime I met the woman that I'm in love with now. So, and that's, it's so different. People are different. I mean, it's so many, gosh, there's so many different variables to that question. There's so many different variables, so many different people. And there's three sides to every story and things like that. And, she hated the time away, but she dealt with it pretty well. She was really good to my son. She was really good to my daughter. But I wasn't good to her. She wasn't really good for me a lot of times, in my opinion. Like this new one, I say new one, she's amazing to me. Memorial Day just came and went. We got an Airbnb. And she's like, "Will you please look out the window? I got something to do." I'm like, "All right, what is it?" And she wouldn't tell me. She set a place at the table for the fallen. And that's in my life. That's never happened ever with anybody in my life. That's man, woman, child, whatever. That's never. I was like blown away. But she sets a table for the candle, the salt for the tears. She puts a glass down, and it's so in my estimation, she gets me, and we understand it. We talk CQB when we go to a hotel together. She shoots alongside of me on the range, so she's just much more in tune to who I am, and was much more in tune to who she was. But I don't think my first one certainly wasn't. She led the Ranger life. She was spoiled, and the second one. Much better, but didn't know. I don't think she really knew who I was or appreciated who I was. And that's difficult. What am I? Now I'm a two-time loser with a past, and my children don't speak to me. And then DJ says, "Was it worth it?" I'll never, ever say in my life that the unit wasn't worth it. As a Ranger, that was the pre-life to my unit life. That was also worth it. It's my decisions, though. It's my difficulties as a man that pushed these women away. Certainly the second one, much more than the first one. But so I don't know if that answer. It's probably incomplete. Maybe it could never be a complete answer.
So let me follow it up then. And maybe this will help fill out the question. We've talked about your career being gone all the time. You've had back surgeries. You've broken your neck in the unit. You have had cancer, gone through all of that kind of stuff. And I always ask the guys that it ends up like this for them when they get their new wife or on the backside of it. And that's what I mean, like the new girlfriend or the new wife on the backside of this whole career. And all of these battles are done. The battles of PTS, the battles of injuries, the battles of everything that's going on inside your head, the kind of war that's going on inside there. Do you think that those first two wives get cheated out of this person on the backside? That maybe that person understands you, because you're complete at the end.
I hate saying the third one, but I'm just not going to mention. I'm just not going to mention her name. She's amazing, and she just gets me more than the others. And whether it's a backside or not, she understands. Well, we got last year we got an Airbnb at a tree house. It was super cool property. And she's like, I want to hear about every mission you ever went on. What? She's like, I want to hear every one of them. And I used to keep a journal. I kept a journal about at least a small amount of each mission. And so we went through these journals, and she genuinely was interested in, I'm not that she tamed me, but I told her just this morning, I said, she's made me a better person. I'm a better person because of her. And I wasn't that way before. So I don't know, man. I think there's certainly validity to what you say. Am I on the backside of stuff, but here I am, training at a shooting range every day. So I'm still part of it.
I think so. But I think as we all get older, I'm getting ready to hit 50. I think as we get older and we start to look back, we understand who we were a little better, because I think in the moment we don't see it. If we're angry, if we're this kind of person, but on the backside we go, oh, I feel better about this. I feel better about that. I feel more open about it. And I've got to think that while you're doing those missions, you're not coming home from deployment and telling that wife, hey, here's what I've been doing for the last 6 months, or these are the missions that I've been on, because that's how you keep it together. So talking to her about all the missions, you've got, we'll say conservatively, 1,000 missions under your belt. Is there one single mission or an operation that changed you as a leader, as a person, that you still to this day look back on and go, I changed fundamentally on that?
I did a mish west of Baghdad. Did some really innovative, cool things to insert, to infill. Got the bad guy. Did a whole bunch more that night. Got shot at. Shot back and used close air support in a danger close type of scenario. Pretty innovative exfil as well. Then lost the bad guy. Not me personally, somebody else, but doesn't matter. And then got fired upon flying back into Baghdad. I got fired upon by rockets while we had prisoners in the helo, and all I could think of was no, not me, not right now, Lord, not right now, not with these people in this helicopter with me. And there's other small bits too. There's other places, other times and fundamentally, I don't think it changed me, but it reminds me, it was something else that happened before then, actually, in Fallujah. So it was a really long 48 hours. I say long, but 48 hours is 48 hours. You can't make it longer. It was a heavy action-packed 48 hours. And some of that changed me a little bit, I'm sure. I talk about, we did a hit where we got the bad guy and ended up killing some bad guys. And we also, on target, the medic helped a woman give birth. So, that was bizarre. You're taking life and then you're helping bring life into the world all in the same time frame. There's a lot of thoughts out there about something, but no real fundamental changes. You lose good friends and you clean up their kit, or you clean up their kit of blood and you got to turn it in or take it somewhere else or let the family have it. Or there was a fundamental change I was working in Hereford, England, with the SAS, and I was basically I was doing a recon I was validating a program that they just started, and they wanted me to come out over and see the blah blah blah. But we ended up we're raising a glass to a guy who lost his life in Afghanistan with the SAS, and these men put on such a fantastic send off for him in the mess, right, in the men's mess, which is storied history. There's stuff all over the walls. It's just unbelievable what kind of history in there. You know, stuff about the Zulus maybe, and there's stuff about Afghanistan over here, and it's just amazing what they've been through. But here's what they did: they took every bit of his kit, every bit of it. They took they took the bootstrings out of his boot, stuff like that. Took the bootstrings out of his boot and auctioned it off. And men all inside that mess, after drinking a whole bunch of alcohol, bought it. You know, they bought this or bought that. I bought a schmog, and all the money goes to his family. And I'm like, we need to do this back home. This is what we need to do. Let's all have a piss up and donate every living thing that we have that is his, and then buy it and keep it and remember him by it, and then give that money to his family. Well, we don't do that though.
I agree with you about that. The only time I really saw that, I was invited down to brag, and they took me to Charlie Mike's, and every day they toast to the fallen, and then the walls are full of pictures, and that's pretty amazing that they do that every single day, you know. And I think that a lot of that's gone in America now. I think people would think, oh, that's morbid. You're buying these bits of his kit and stuff like that. And I don't know. I think that we've strayed away from the fallen a little bit here.
Yeah, it's not about
Right.
hot dogs. It's not about race cars. I mean, Memorial Day is a great race car day, right? It's Monaco, Indy 500, and Coca-Cola 600. But it's not about that. It's about Memorial Day, right? So, you know what patents say. We shouldn't mourn that these men died. We should thank God that they lived. It's Memorial Day's hard, and it's funny. Um, it wasn't super hard this year, I think, emotionally for me, but it was, you know, when she did that, I'm like, that got me really, really good, and that's something I'll never forget. So, anyways.
So let's talk about pioneering canines in special operations. What was it about the operations and stuff that was going on that made you say, we need to be doing this?
When I first saw it, I'm like, that would be super cool. I think it evolved when you have to think of, if you're any infantryman, if you're in full kit, right? You used to have level 3 or level 4 plates, and then you're carrying a 12-pound stick, and you got 200 rounds of ammunition on you, and you got a grenade, and you got a helmet, and you got nods, and what is it, 60 pounds? Are you wearing 40 to 60 pounds of extra kit? So when that jihadi runs out of the back door in his tracksuit and a gun, and you're trying to chase him, and he's outrunning you, some of that came from there. You know, how do we get those guys if we weren't going to shoot them? How do we go get them? And so that came along, and that was pretty smart. You know, you could use them on the outside of the edge of the building, whatever, just like anybody else might, SWAT guys might. And then they get released when trying to chase down a bad guy. And I'm pretty sure in 50 states it's not lethal force, so that's a good thing. Does it hurt? Yes. Is it brutal? Could be, but it works really well, and it's something to watch. But then we took it further, and then we tried to integrate them into the close quarter battle process. And I want to leave it at this, if we can. I think one guy says, you're never going to do this.
Sure.
6 months later, no one else wanted to do without it. And that's how quickly it exploded and became something very important. Did we have trials and tribulations? You betcha. But in the end, what do we have? 20 plus names, 26 names on the wall. And if that's 26 men that came back, the ripple effect on top of that, that's hard to say that it wasn't worth it. And they do it for pennies on the dollar, to be honest. It costs a lot of money to get them when they're mostly finished. It costs a nice chunk of money. It costs money to go get them, bring them back, and then they wash out. The washout rate's much higher than it is for humans. Um, but it's something to see when you see and it's just SWAT stuff too, whatever. But when you see a dog track a guy over 1,000 meters, an unknown, and then find him, that's super cool. That is like super magical. I'm not saying I did any of that in combat because I never did. Training, yes, saw that in training, but not in combat. But to see them work with you inside and push somebody out of the way to get the bad guy, and then you're like, he's a keeper. I mean, obviously, he's a good one. He understands the difference between me and him. So, labor of love is what I used to call it too. It's a labor of love. There was a lot of work that went into it. Of course, there's the procurement and then selection process for them, and then the training process. That's labor intensive too. But then it's, who's cleaning the kennels, who's feeding the dogs, and it becomes an extra duty. You're not taking them home with you, so it becomes an extra duty. But I enjoyed it immensely, and it was a protection of the force game changer, I would say. The flashbang goes into a room and it becomes a distraction, right? Dog is a flashbang with
Right.
teeth, and he's reusable. He goes in, he causes a distraction, but he's got a thinking mindset. He can go here, go there. Most of the time, they go into a room that if there's nothing in that room, you and I are still clearing it. He's already gone because he knows there's something in here. He's going somewhere else. And they're magical to watch when they do it right.
When was the first time you looked at one, whether in training or combat, and you thought, this is an amazing gift we've been given?
They were really hardworking, excellent animals for the guys. And like I said before, if you're chasing somebody who's wearing a tracksuit and he doesn't have a gun on him, and so we're not going to shoot him down because that's not what we do. So go get them, and they're an asset for sure. But you got to find a way to put them on the aircraft or put them in the truck or wherever, and then you got to figure out how to keep them comfortable to a degree, right? They still have to be looked after, and so we had to come up with different ways to kennel them and put air conditioning in those kennels or something like that, or hydrate them before they go on missions. And we learned a whole lot. It's pretty cool.
Let's go back to the thousands of operations that you've done. How do you stay focused? After doing it 1,000 times, it can become very easy to become complacent.
Well, I guess juxtaposed with what I talked about in a Full the Gap and nobody cared to this, everybody cares. So first of all, everybody cares. Everybody's looking at, training was hard. Training when you got home was hard, and preparation to go again. Was it Erwin Rommel who said, or some Roman centurion might have said, every drop of sweat saves drops of blood in combat. So every drop of sweat in training saves drops of blood in combat. Okay, all that aside, there may have been a time, but I don't remember it, to be honest with you. I don't remember it that I would, we would make fun of stuff. We would laugh at stuff. We'd stay alert. And as a leader too, I remember a guy asking me, what do you feel about this one? This feels weird to me. I go, nope, it feels fine to me. Good. Number one, as a leader, you can't show that anyway. Number two, even I used to maintain, even if you told them it was a 24 cross power trap on 2, didn't matter. We're coming, and you can't stop us. Not to be cavalier or cocky about it, but we weren't really fighting a near peer element either. There was times when they did some things that even amazed us sometimes, like, oh, wait, they did that? Huh. They've been watching YouTube videos or something. But for the most part, you're not fighting a tier one. Not tier one, but even an even peer element. They're savages for the most part with very little training. That being said, it doesn't take any training to put up a bunch of sandbags at the back of a hallway and put a PKM in there, and then see somebody come through the door, you shoot them. And we lost guys like that too. So that's, not to be totally cavalier about the lack of training, but bad guys can still kill you.
100%. You talk about in a lot of interviews that you do, you talk about humility and service. Do you think there was a failure or a low point that kind of humbled you and redirected you as a leader?
Watching other men lead poorly. No need to be a tyrant. I would tell people, I would tell junior leaders, always by example, always. And it's the same thing with me on the range now at the sawmill. You have to demo what you do. If you're talking about it, well, I'm talking about it, you have to do these things this way. So you have to demonstrate that. So you have to demo it. Lead by example. One particular moments or anything. I think more it's probably a compilation of things. One of my platoon sergeants, we were doing immediate action drills. I'm up, they see me, I'm down, right? Immediate. Do we call them immediate action drills? All right, I'm up, they see me, I'm down, right? That kind of thing, right? Or high crawl, low crawl. And I remember him giving an example, and he was sergeant first class. He shouldn't have to do that. And he's down there and he gives this great example of a high crawl or low crawl, whatever it was. I'm like, okay, yeah, I was John Spizzo. Or there's other leadership too. There's other men you see, and you can take. I had leaders that were tyrants. Put a bunch of tasks on the back of the board, or a dry erase board on the back, and once a task got finished, well, we'd erase it, and then we'd come back, and then there'd be a new task in its place. And so we got smart, and then didn't erase them anymore. We'd go finish that task and just not erase it. So no need to tell anybody. We know it's finished, but we didn't want them to put it back up there. And I've gone through other tyrants too. And then you watch stuff like Band of Brothers. I use the Dick Winters stuff all the time. And you look at Lieutenant Sobel in Band of Brothers. He's the guy not to be. You don't need to be a tyrant. I'm just trying to think of one interesting perspective. All right, senior guy. We just went through some really hard training before deployment. It may not have been right before deployment, but the cycle of training for us with this guy was difficult. And I respected it, but it was hard. And I said to him one time, I said, so listen, how about this? How about we do all that hard stuff that you do? And I'm fine with that because, again, sweat saves blood. So we do all that. But in the end, right, when we're picking up the precious cargo out of the truck or whatever it is that you designate us to lift and carry and move to a certain place, that actually has beer in it or steaks in it. And then you have to take it to a cook who's already pre-placed and he's got it, or blah, blah, blah. And he goes, what, for doing their job? And I said, yeah, for doing their job because you love them, because you love them. That's what you need to do. As a ranger, we did a static line insertion, probably Taylor's Creek, DZ, and Fort Stewart. It's probably not called Fort Stewart anymore, for some reason why. But Taylor's Creek out there, we jump in, static line, assemble, 25-mile road march. 25. We had to do one per half a year or one per year. So we're doing a 25-mile road march. You're pumping up your kids, you're moving around. I think I was a squad leader at the time. And then the word comes down. We're doing an assembly. Okay, warning order. We got to hit this target. Roger that. So we assemble. We got everybody together. Take your rucksacks off. We'll leave them here. Go over there. Assault the target. Blah blah blah. And then once the assault was done and everybody was starting to do their after action review, a big 5-ton truck pulled back up. Two of them pulled. One pulled up with full of pallets, and it was pretty chilly that morning. And he started a fire, and the other guy pulled up with a whole bunch of mermites for chow for breakfast, because the first sergeant worked us really hard. And then he said, here, after action review, get some warmth by the fire, get new t-shirts on. Hey, Doc, look at their feet. Here's some food. You know what I mean? And so that's a reward. I want you to work hard, but I love you. You see? And that's what I would do as a leader, even today. So you make them work hard, sure, but give them a reward.
I 100% agree with you. When we talk about that, and it's funny you bring up the medic and stuff, because over your career, you've had a medic save you a couple of times, and it was the same medic save you a couple of times. Yeah, Paul. I want to talk about your injuries over this, because I think it starts the transition into the civilian life from that world that you were in, because you started figuring out, hey, all this stuff's being taken away from me. I can't jump. I can't do this. I can't. So let's talk about some of your injuries. Let's start with your introduction into kind of the unit where you were trying breaching instruments, and they took a turn on you.
Thing called the Simon device, which was a I don't think this is classified in any way whatsoever. It's like a disc that goes on the end of your rifle. It's a hollow charge breaching weapon the Israelis developed. And then it's a standoff. So you could be 25 meters away, shoot this thing. It hits the door, blows up, and you just got to recharge your weapon and go back to work and go. And so we decided to experiment with it on a car. And we did indeed find out that the car would be disabled. You could break the wheel with it. You could break a motor with it. It was interesting. And you could still leave everybody in the cab relatively unharmed. I mean, it was a big explosion, but it wasn't horrible. My particular mission changed. We came back and said, okay, let's see what it does to people on the inside. So we put targets on the inside of this thing and took up a position. I fired it, and I hit the B pillar with it. A pillar is the one up by the windshield. B pillar is the first door. And it pulled the skin off that car door and came back and smashed me in my face. And that was a welcome to the unit. Here you go, buddy. Pretty exciting. Some guys would say, "How come you didn't duck?" I'm like, well, I don't remember seeing it. It was an explosion and all. But I'm thinking we were 35 meters away. I may be wrong on that. We probably didn't have. I'm certain we didn't have a better angle. Right. That was probably the key here. I don't remember exactly where we were in all the geography to the car. A lot of things have happened since then. Plus all the morphine they gave me, but all that. Yeah, broke my jaw, broke my neck, lost 6 teeth. I got cracked. Had a big hematoma right here. Pretty exciting. Paul Linskins was my medic. Loved him to death, and he helped me out right there. He said, "Get in the Humvee." I said, "I'm good." Spitting blood out. He said, "Not getting the Humvee." So we went back, and I think there's a picture somewhere with Paul standing over top of me. But great dude. And later on, I had first back surgery was 2000. Of which I've had 4, not all in service, all because of service, I'm certain, but I've had my final one, hopefully. Final one was fusion, multi-level fusion. Just changes my movement a little bit, but in the end, there's no pain anymore, and I can run and do whatever else I want. Man, I've had a couple broken fingers and sprained things here and there. I cracked my elbow, broke my elbow, detached my tricep muscle from the same arm. Broke right leg, right ankle. Had the back surgeries and then the cancer in 2009. That was fascinating too, to be honest with you.
Well, let's not lightly go over that, because once again, you thought I got it, and it ended up.
Oh yeah.
You waited a couple days. Actually, it was Memorial Day weekend, correct?
The 26th, I think, is when the day it struck me. The year before, I was doing some bicycling. Me and a bunch of guys were trying to do a 20-mile loop in an hour, and I could never get it. My average was like 18 miles an hour. I could never get it. The other guys were younger, faster, better. But I was trying. And there was a point in time when we were doing that thing, I was feeling really tired. And we went on a deployment, and for those of you who don't get checked, right, I had black and bloody stool, and something was wrong on the inside of me. And typical male, I said, well, it'll get better. I'll wait. But I did complain about it to a doc, and then he gave me one thing or another. And then Paul, again, was in the picture, and he said, no, that's wrong. Let's do this instead. So it went away, though. It did go away. I was less tired. The black and blade stools stopped. And so that was it. Well, going back after we knew what happened later, I'm pretty sure that the tumor itself broke open or something, and it sent blood into my system. Um, and then it healed on its own. So that was probably what was going on there. But I didn't get checked. I didn't go do a colonoscopy or anything else, which we should have done, because we probably could have prevented what happened next. So Memorial Day 2009 ish, we have a party. We have a party in the. I lived on a cul-de-sac, a T intersection cul-de-sac on both sides, and we had friends live down there. Friends live over here, so we decided to have a party together, like a block party. We had bad food. We had we had whiskey and beer. And I'm thinking, my stomach hurts because of that. Went to sleep, got up in the morning. I was awakened in the morning, probably around 04 of intense pressure. And I couldn't relieve the pressure whatsoever. I couldn't urinate, couldn't defecate, couldn't throw up, nothing. And it just was intense pressure. Later on, it manifested itself like gas pains. And so I didn't know, what do I know? So finally, though, I woke up the wife at the time and said, "Hey, I need to go to the hospital." Much as I hated saying that, well, I think it's time to go to the ER. So we went. And long story short, at the ER, they did an MRI, found nothing. Or CAT scan, rather. No, CT scan. Yeah, CT scan, found nothing. The guy said, kidney stones. I said, okay, kidney stones. This was Saturday, I think. So Sunday is Monaco, right? Sunday is the Coca-Cola and the Indy 500. So I decided I would just sit around in bed and eat Percocet and drink cranberry juice and water, and hopefully the stones would pass, and I would watch racing all day. So that's what I did. And it was Sunday came and went. Monday came and went. Did we go back to work on Tuesday? Pretty sure it was 4-day weekend. And I looked in the mirror on Monday, and I'm like, I could see my back was bigger. So I'm distending. I mean, I felt bloated anyway because I'm drinking water and cranberry juice, trying to get these things to pass. But I was distending. And I said, something wrong with that. We should probably go see the docs. We'll see him tomorrow. And at the time frame, the Pittsburgh Penguins were in the National Hockey League team. They were in the playoffs, and they were going to Carolina. And I had tickets, and I wanted to go with my son quite badly. And it got worse and worse, this whole thing. And I'm like, I had to sell these tickets, damn it. So I spent time on the phone while the wife drove back to work, and got to work. And my back was acting up too. So it was before my second back surgery. I'm walking up the steps, and my docs, later I learned, they were looking out the window. I go, that's Dutch. He goes, yeah, he looks like he's jacked up. And the other doctor looks at him and said, it's a great professional opinion. Yeah, he's jacked up. And so I was distending at the time. The tumor had broken open. Nobody knew it. I'm getting bigger and bigger. And my back was hurting. So what? Big deal. So the emergency surgery, blah, blah, blah. JSOC surgeon named Jason Hiles saved my life that day. Like a bad movie, you could see my cavity growing bigger and bigger and bigger on like a second hand on a clock. And I said, obviously, can you see this? I mean, like something's going to happen here. So he shows up and says, what do you got going on? So I don't even know, but if you got a screwdriver to pop some of this pressure out, I appreciate it. Besides, I said, and now listen, I'm a bus rider now. So you're in charge, brother. Which was cool. He was a believer in Christ too. So it was pretty cool. And anyway, long story short, they took out 10 to 12 inches of upper GI and the tumor. The problem with the tumor, though, it exploded and the pieces were all over the place. So what I understood he did, he pulled everything out and cleaned it all up twice and then put it back in. I had some challenges after that as well, but in the end, they gave us 5 years to live, and it's been a little bit longer than that. So I'm pretty happy about it.
The reason I bring that one up is because you made some really heartfelt life decisions then. a lot of that stuff was coming to an end where we talked about you were being told don't jump anymore. You have 5 years to live. And you started thinking, what I've heard you say is about your daughter. Would you be able to walk around and play with your daughter in the backyard? And you really start making decisions that aren't decisions like we talked about before, where you said, this is my life, this is what I'm going to do. You started changing your focus to other people. Do you think that stayed now that 5 years is gone? Do you think that you're still in that mind state where you still want to be that guy? Does that make any sense?
It does, and I'm afraid I'm not. I was never a really good father. My doc said, because back to what you said, the first thing he said to me, he said, "How do you feel?" I said, "When can I put my kid on?" That was the first thing out of my mouth. He said, "You should worry about, if you can chase your daughter around the backyard when she's 10 rather than putting your kid on."
All these decades, this has been who you were. We've talked about it. It messed up marriages, being a father, all of those kind of things. And then you're being told it's over. You're not that guy anymore. You got to be this guy. I got to understand the emotions, the feelings, the thoughts.
So now I got cancer. I'm not past the 5 years yet. Doc says you shouldn't jump anymore or wear a kit. Pardon me, gosh. And so I'm down to what the hell do I do now? Because this is what this place is all about. And so I tried to make a decision. In 12, I made a decision to go ahead and go through a retirement process. Yeah, so it was not easy. I have the letter that I sent the sergeant major, and he was very gracious in his retort. But I remember saying, I guess I have to do something else. I'm not supposed to do any of these other cool things that I used to do. And then the whole year of recovery put me behind. I worked for JSOC for a little bit as a liaison officer, and then I went to Afghanistan after that. But they said I wasn't allowed in austere environments. I had to check my blood every month. I underwent CT scans on a regular basis to see if there was any remnants of the cancer. So I was in a hospital back and forth. I mean, these are 1-day visits. They're just they're in and out, but still, I was doing it all the damn time. And so that kind of ruined my career for picking up a rifle and putting kid on and doing it again. As a Christian, right? You say my identity is in Christ, and this is not me. I can't take this identity on because my identity really is a child of God, of a son and daughter of Christ.
So let me pose the question to you like this then. What happens when you can't be that guy anymore?
So my identity should be in God, not what I do. But at the same time, He made me this way, so I don't know what to do with that sometimes. And so, man, there was. I'm still that guy. I'm still that guy. I'm still in the 2A community. I still train law enforcement. I train military. I mentor young men.
All right. So let's go into the GRS thing. Like you said, you get out. You can't do that cool stuff anymore. You go to work for the agency.
I still don't feel like I'm done now. I don't. I'm here for a reason. Whatever. If it's a small platform, like you have this great platform right now, and you're making a difference. If people hear this and they're inspired by it, hopefully they are. That's awesome. That's what I want to do. I guess I dislike social media, but I'm not on it like I should be. I suppose it causes trouble. I hate it. But long story short, I want to make a difference. And and again, my girlfriend today talked about if it makes a difference to that one person, then I'm doing it. So it makes a difference. And so I'm here training. I'm here part of the community. I'm here mentoring. So I'm still that guy. I'm not contemplating it. I mean, I'm not trying to be head in the sand, about it, but I'm not contemplating it. I'm 60. I'm 60 and I'm doing pretty well. And I plan to keep going.
You think there was ever a day, Army or civilian, that you just wanted to quit?
Yeah, 100%. Um, we talk about that train moving super fast. I got out of, stopped working for GRS, big moan down there. I stopped working for GRS and decided to just go full-time entrepreneurship. And then of course I stopped when came here 2 years ago, but website, you're the chief bottle washer, you're the magazine loader, you're the guy who takes the shirts to the post office to send to the guy who wanted it, stickers, the thank you notes. You're the guy who makes the travel coordinations. You're the guy who makes the flight coordinations. You're the guy who ships ammunition or targets to the next place you're going to go, so you can fly there instead of drive there. And that's something to think about. If you've got to be all in, sort of. It's your own thing, so you better do it well. Otherwise, your own thing won't make any money, and then you'll be back where you were before. But getting butts in seats, advertisement, Google services, optimization, Square. If you use Squarespace, something like that, they take money, they take a percentage. Or PayPal or Venmo or whatever. Everybody's getting their little piece of you. And, it goes on and on. And yeah, there's a lot of what am I doing here? I would much rather be the operations sergeant major behind the desk who says, I'm going to go to the range right now. I'm going to go train. I'd much rather be on the range training rather than I'll be behind the desk. And so the single entrepreneur, though, you have to do both. So you have to go train. Obviously, that's what your life is, but you have to do all the back stuff, all the backside stuff too. And there was plenty of times where I was like, what in the wide world of sports am I doing? There's a saying, my former organization, where, once you have doubts about coming in the gate, it's time to quit. I think settle down a little bit. That's a little bit much because I'm tired. I want to do nothing today, but I can't. I got to go in, right? So there's times when you don't want to go to work, and it's totally understandable. I think that's for anything, but yeah, I'd love to. I have not made great decisions as far as my what's the how do you be a millionaire, right? How do you become a millionaire? You have to live like no one else today. Yeah, you have to live like no one else today, so you can live like no one else later. And I haven't been good at that. So, I mean, I get a retirement paycheck. I do. I got some money saved up. I do. I got some assets, but in the end, I'm going to keep working for quite some time.
You think PTS has done anything to you? Do you think you've suffered from it?
A friend of mine, Jimmy Caldwell, will tell you that everybody has it. I don't, because I told him I don't think I have it, and he's like, everybody has it. We went through batteries of tests, TBI tests, and things like that. Tinnitus is a thing for me that I constantly deal with my tinnitus. Earlier in the broadcast here, I didn't really hear it much. I'm hearing a little bit more now. A lot of times over the Memorial Day weekend, I was just sitting on the couch and there was nothing going on, and I could really hear it. It was really bad, really big. But that's a physical aspect. It's not traumatic, post-traumatic stress. I used to think, and sometimes I still do, that post-traumatic stress is a crutch. But also when you read, oh my gosh, On Killing and On Combat, Colonel Grossman, when you read Colonel Grossman, you find out that we're all so different. We already know that, but we're also different. There are only really a certain amount of people that can do all these things that some of us have done and then go to sleep at night. Some people can't do that. And so PTS is real, very real. It could be real because they got mugged. It could be real because they got in a car accident. I just drove by a car accident just yesterday. It was a truck had gone completely rolled over and it was laying in the ditch. And I just got there. No EMS were there, no police were there. Two guys were there. They were ambulatory, standing around making phone calls. I'm like, really? They were good to go, but it was a massive crash. The opportunities to perform. I've heard this before from coaches. I am very thankful for the opportunity to continue to make a difference. I'm thankful for the opportunity to perform. Uh, I got up this morning and right away I take a knee and I pray and I say, thank you, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. Thanks for I'm still walking. I know plenty of people that aren't walking anymore with their two legs, right? Um, I'm overwhelmingly blessed by the fact that I still have power and I can still breathe and I can still work. Um, the opportunities though that I've had over the years, especially at the unit, but as a ranger too, and then even as a GRS officer, I've been places and it's so cool. Just amazing places when you go, you're like, how the hell, how the hell get here? Right? It's almost like that imposter syndrome. You don't deserve this. What are you doing here? Um, I've been on the plains of Giza. I've been to Jerusalem, uh, Panama, Germany, Hawaii, Italy, Africa, Southwest Asia, over and over again. uh, the opportunities I've had, Australia, a couple different times. It's just amazing opportunities I've had. England numerous times. Yeah, so I'm most thankful for the opportunities that I've had to hopefully make a difference to the people I've worked with, the people I've been around, um, and hopefully my story's not over, and I'll continue to do more things and hopefully make an impact somewhere. A friend of mine, Jamie Caldwell, will tell you that everybody has it. I don't, because I told him I don't think I have it, and he's like, everybody has it. We went through batteries of tests, TBI tests, and things like that. Tinnitus is a thing for me that I constantly deal with my tinnitus. Earlier in the broadcast here, I didn't really hear it much. I'm hearing a little bit more now. A lot of times over the Memorial Day weekend, I was just sitting on the couch and there was nothing going on, and I could really hear it. It was really bad, really big. Um, but that's a physical aspect. It's not traumatic, post-traumatic stress. I used to think, and sometimes I still do, that post-traumatic stress is a crutch. But also when you read, oh my gosh, On Killing and On Combat, Colonel Grossman, when you read Colonel Grossman, you find out that we're also different. We already know that, but we're also different. There are only really a certain amount of people that can do all these things that some of us have done and then go to sleep at night. Some people can't do that. And so PTS is real, very real. It could be real because they got mugged. It could be real because they got in a car accident. I just drove by a car accident just yesterday. It was a truck had gone completely rolled over and it was laying in the ditch. And I just got there. No EMS were there, no police were there. Two guys were there. They were ambulatory, standing around making phone calls. I'm like, really? They were good to go, but it was a massive crash. Could have PTS from any of those things, right? But you can't let it rule you, right? You're going to have to control it. It's like an alcoholic. It reminds me of Man on Fire, where John Creasy's John Creasy, Denzel Washington's being talked to by Rayburn, which is Christopher Walken's character, and he says, what about me? I drink, and he goes, you got to control it. These are outside influences that affect us, but we have to control them. How you do that, different stories, I guess, and they're all different. We're all different, and you're gonna have to control it in different manners, whether it's physical fitness. I don't want to. I mean, PTS is real. I get it. Again, I just don't. I wish that people wouldn't use it as a crutch. And I think as of late, I think people aren't using it as a crutch. But I certainly think in the last 10, a whole bunch of folks were using it as a crutch. So
Yeah, Brent Tucker and I have talked about that on the show about PTS, and I think he feels kind of the same way about you. He said he didn't have problems sleeping. He said that, you know, he didn't have problems with what he did. I would agree with you that I think it is used as a crutch sometimes, but I wonder if it manifests itself in other ways. Did you ever have drink problems, painkiller?
I drink a whole lot less than I used to. And that was a problem at home too. That was a problem. I mean, I didn't start drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning and, finish at 10 o'clock at night. I enjoyed, there was a bar right next to the gym. I would go to the gym. I would go to the bar. But it caused trouble. Sure. Yeah. 100%. But you have to control it, or stop it completely, or otherwise it'll control you. But there were some times, there were times when it was too much.
That's for sure. All right. What do you think the word legacy means to you? And when I ask you that, how do you want to be remembered by 3 different things? Your family, your teammates, and the people you train.
I hope that my family, I'll call it my old family now. I hope my old family sees that I did things, did I do things wrong? Did I make mistakes? Yes, but also set them up for success. They wouldn't be where they are right now if it wasn't for me. I'm not trying to thump my chest there. I just hope that they realize that going forward. The teammates is, I hope that guy is not the guy. He's friendly, humble, amenable, affable, but he's not the guy that would, gives up secrets. He's not that guy. He's the guy that gets invited back. He's the guy that's in good standing. And then, we used to say that that's a good dude. They'd say that dude, he's a good dude. That's not how you want to be remembered. That dude, badass, or, fearless, or a guy I would take to, the toughest mission. I put him on the list. I'd like to be remembered that way, of course. And then third one, I think the same there too. And he made an impact. He made a difference. I did a piece of work last year in Indiana, and the guy wrote me 2 weeks later. They had a shoot, and he wrote me and said, "Due to your training, I went back home to see my wife and kids." And I'm like, right there, that's it. That's the win. That's all I need to hear. That's it right there. That was the most rewarding thing anybody's ever said. With the help of your training, I was better, and I did what I had to do on the battlefield, and I got home to my wife and kids. That's why I'm here. So if it makes a difference in that one, which it did, I want to be, and I want to do more. There's more to do, and there's so much more to do, because I want to finish the race well. I want to, thank you, good and faithful servant, that kind of thing. I made plenty of mistakes, but I want to do better now, make up for those, so there's a lot of work to do.
Well, and talking about your training, I read a magazine article that you were in, and you talked about when you're training police, you're training law enforcement and first responders, and they started off the questioning by asking you about defunding the police, and you said, I think we should fund them more. And then you started, the interesting part of the article, though, was when you started talking about battle space, because it seemed like the person interviewing you had trouble with the word of battle space. Here's the point that I was getting to with it in the article. So you start talking about battle space, you get a little kickback on it, but then you start explaining battle space, the actual word and the definition of it. And you talk about, yes, we are at battle in this battle space. We have criminals that we're looking for. There will be armed conflict. There will be physical fights, but also, just like in special operations, we have to talk to the people and keep them safe in the area. We are just as much a diplomat as we are a warrior in that environment.
So what's the analogy? So it doesn't matter what I'm doing. So if I'm in my backyard and I need a tool, but that tool was born out of the crucible of combat in a military scenario, but I can buy it as a civilian now because it helps, it works. What's the big deal, right? So law enforcement officers are much like military people, but hopefully they learn lessons from what we have gone through, whether it's first aid, marksmanship, kit that they wear, whatever it might be. I hope so. But then these councilmen, these people get nervous and they say that we don't want to be a militarized state, or they need to get over themselves a little bit, I think. But that's probably never going to happen, brother. You're probably right. It's probably never going to happen. You can't use these words. They're buzzwords for the military background stuff, and we don't really militarize law enforcement. But at the same time, you need a militarized law enforcement. So it's some of the tools mix. They work just fine together.
The final thing I want to ask you before we kind of get into what you're doing now and how people can get a hold of you and kind of start wrapping the conversation up is, when you do all of this stuff, you spend the 3 decades in the military, you are in the global war on terror, you have run the gamut.
Yeah.
You've seen the worst of the worst. And then you come back to the United States, you retire in 2013 and in the state of America and go, this is what I fought for? This is what I was doing that job for so many years for?
I had a moment during high watermark deployments. It's probably 2007, maybe 6. And everybody was having a great time. We went to a restaurant. Everybody's having a great time in there, watching basketball at the time. And it was springtime. Maybe it was whatever it was, March Madness. And I kind of got mad. Then immediately caught myself and said, you do this because they could do that. That's why I volunteered in the first place. So they can do all that. Now, a price comes with freedom. A price comes with freedom. That kind of stuff comes with freedom. I think some of the root causes of that stupid stuff are political in nature, communist, Marxist, political in nature. So there's a whole different route we can go down, right? The rhetoric on campuses, rhetoric in small towns, Black Lives Matter, and then looking at the root where they come from. Black Lives Matter at the time said we disagree with the nuclear family. They removed that off their website later on. It doesn't matter. There's a whole lot of cause and effect for that stuff. But in the beginning with Derek Chauvin, is it possible he could have done something slightly different? Yes. Yeah. And that's why is that? Or what happens? How do we change that? Was George Floyd going to die anyway? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not the creator. I'm not the ender of life or the beginning of life. So I don't know if Chauvin was really choking him or not. I have no idea. But we know Floyd died. But could there have been a different way to do that rather than a perceived neck on the throat? I say yes. And that comes from training, and spatial and situational awareness. So I used to work in an organization that was protected. But if we did something wrong, if you did something wrong as an individual, you're hurting the element that does so much work freely. So if the Minnesota police could keep working, if Chauvin didn't do that, and again, I don't know if he's innocent. I don't know if he did. You could make those own decisions back there when you watch this. I don't care. It's up to you. Maybe you already have them. Doesn't matter. But the whole idea is to protect the unit, to protect the force. And he maybe didn't do that. And that was cause and effect. A lot of weird things happened because other organizations that wanted violence took advantage of it completely. Bad people running organizations that were communistic in nature and Marxist in nature took advantage of it. And so that's a bummer. Now, what did I look back and go, did I fight for this? Yeah, I did. I fought for freedom. And if their portions of freedom are going to do that, well, they should be punished and put in jail. But yeah, I fought for that, and I'm okay with it. And in the end, it didn't sound right. I'm not okay with rioting. I'm not okay with mostly peaceful protests, because that's what the CNN guy said, right? Mostly peaceful protests. They weren't peaceful at all, man. You weirdo. They're burning shit right behind you. So I a lot of me doesn't understand it, right? So living in rural North Carolina, that wasn't happening. Were there a couple of marches? I think there were. I didn't see any. Pretty sure there was downtown, Pinehurst or something like that. There was one, Southern Pines maybe. I didn't see it. Um, the biggest thing is I will fight for the right for you to make your own decision. I will fight for the right for you, not you personally, but collectively you and you too. And I will fight for that right for you to disagree with me. I hope that I can bring you to the table and say, think about it this way, and you'll see this may be correct, or maybe a more efficient way to do it without people getting hurt. But in the end, people are inherently bad, and they're going to keep doing stuff like that anyway. They'll just be on different levels. Hopefully, we can keep the Marxist communists at bay a little bit longer.
All right, let's talk about what you're doing now, how people can get a hold of you, and let's really talk about the core of what you're doing, because you are training that next generation. You talk about it a lot. This is how you give back, is by training that next generation of warrior, of law enforcement, however you want to put it, out there. Let's talk about the company, how people can get a hold of it, and what you're offering.
I am the operations sergeant major here at the Sawmill Tactical Training Complex in Lawrence, South Carolina. 250 acres of man ranch. I say man ranch, but women are coming. We're having a big Warrior Women weekend this weekend. Actually, I have a class tomorrow. Shoot, move, and communicate. I have a private class on Sunday. More than 26 different classes are up on the board for 25. I know 25 is coming to an end, and I'll be moving them to 26 here soon. But we run the gamut. I mean, all kinds of great things happen here. We have a lodge. We got 48 people can be in this lodge, full kitchen, fire pits hanging out, a couple fire pits, 6 tactical bays. We have a long range that goes up to 1,400 yards. Superstructures, shoot house, trails. We do off-road shooting as well. We call the off-road shooting series. I'm stealing that from my guys out in Tennessee. They're in Tennessee, sorry. We've had helicopters here. We've done aerial gunnery, machine guns. That's on the face of it. Civilians, right? Select civilians, law enforcement, military, of course. We have an EMS exercise here every year. It's huge. Many counties across the board come here. We love to give back. The Sawmill is predominantly 4 guys run the thing. Steve is a 160th SOAR pilot, the Little Bird pilot. Myself, you got my background already. You got a couple of Marines working here. Tom Flynn, Eric Carr, JT Thomas, all Marines. Great cadre of guys that know what they're doing, and it's a great man camp to get away from all the hustle bustle and come out here. We have beautiful sunset here, and it's just stupid to say, but it is a beautiful sunset here. I don't know what makes it so beautiful here. We're kind of up on top of a hill overlooking some of this valley, and we're on the edge of the upstate of South Carolina. About an hour away from Greenville Airport. An hour from Greenville proper. There's lakes nearby, hiking nearby. Nearby. Greenwood Lake is part of the Saluda River. It's 11, 12 minutes away. It's a fantastic place. And I said, the Sawmill Training Academy is what our classes are really kind of right now. We're offering a whole bunch of stuff coming up. We're making it better. Everything we do is better. We have a full-time pro shop here. Where you can buy kit, of course, outfit yourself for the next thing. We have partnerships with First Form, Born Primitive, Hardhead Veterans. That's off the top of my head right there. That's about it. But those 4 or 5 guys that run the Sawmill, they want to give back, and all military guys, we want to give back and provide our law enforcement agents the power to survive the next day, right? And come home to their families, just like that guy in Indiana. We do mobile training as well. If you have a request somewhere, Eastern Seaboard, wherever in the middle of the country, we'll come out and train you. SawmillTTC.com. That's SawmillTTC.com. Or you can find me, Dutch Chris Moyer Actual, on IG. The website's going back up. We're getting more swag, hats, flasks, shirts. Class lineup will be on there too, but we're just not there yet. And hopefully making a new foray into clothing with a brand called 2 is greater than 1. So, like we said before, 2 is 1, 1 is none. That's about it. Thank you so much for asking me, man. Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry it took me so long.
Let's talk about where you can find me. As always, you can find me on Instagram, the DTD_podcast. You can find me on Facebook at the DTD Podcast. And you can find me on YouTube, where all these conversations are in video form at the DTD Podcast. Dynamic Tales Delivered. But your one-stop shop is going to be dtdpodcast.net. You can go there. You can see more pictures that we talked about. You can find the links to the book. You can find more out about the story. And you can also find audio and video in every version that we have of these episodes. Make sure you go check it out, dtdpodcast.net. Make sure you leave a comment. Tell me who you want to see on the show. Share, like, subscribe, be a friend, tell a friend, all those stupid things that people say. Do all of them. Make sure that you continue to do it and support the show. And talking about supporting the show, let's talk about the guys that make it happen. My buddy Hoot over at nomadicresearch.com. If you want cool shirts, hats, hoodies, backpacks, anything to make you look cool in the airport or just in general, that's where you're going to want to go. nomadicresearch.com. Make sure you go over there. And if you get a hold of me, send me a private message. I will let you know the code to get you a discount on some of your stuff. nomadicresearch.com. Guys, that's going to be it for this week. This has been the show. We'll catch you on the next one.